What's going on, guys? Brian with Biz Baits here. We wanted to take a second and a moment to kind of get behind the baits and the designs that we have available here and just tell you a little story behind each of them and how they came to be and why we make them the way we make them. So I just want to take a second and just tell you about what I got here, which is our Sassy stick. Sassy stick is kind of like your standard 5-inch stick bait. This one is technically 5.5 inches. It's got a little bit of a tapered tail. In some of these other designs, it's truly custom and what we built over the years to like have certain features or looks from a design perspective. What's really cool about this Sassy stick and really doesn't meet the eye is the uniqueness inside this bait. And so many years ago, I'll shout out one of my friends, Brian, as well. His name's Brian. Many years ago, I was looking to make a stick bait, and there was the goat that's out there that everybody knows, and then there's a lot of everybody else's stick baits. And these things were mass produced and made by the thousands. And like we talked about, from the look, you could hold 10 different stick baits up and they all look like a stick bait, a cigar, a Bic pen, like Gary designed it behind. But what makes a stick bait truly unique, and it's really hard to demonstrate without letting you guys know or telling the story or showing you if you see us at a trade show, is what makes a stick bait succeed better, let's say, or have better success with certain stick baits than others, is what doesn't meet the eye, which is the formula in the bait. And I talked about my buddy Brian. So years ago, I was telling him, like, man, I want to make the best stick bait out there. And we know some of the great ones, right? And some that weren't so great when you get them underwater. And so we talked about it. He came over to the house. We were making these baits in my dad's garage, and he had his truck full of lots of other options of stick baits that were on the market, and then ours. And he's like, look, Brian, you can just make another stick bait, or you can try our best to come up with a formula that competes with what's the best out there and has that shimmy that you need in a great stick bait. So it can either be durable or shake like it needs to shake, and it's one of those, like, you can't have one and the other. So we decided, like, yes, this formula, like many that are just right, aren't as durable, but if you go durable, you're not going to get the shimmy that makes this type of a bait so special and so unique. So we spent hours, man. We did formula, we wrote down different things. 1 cup of this with salt and softness, and okay, let's make it softer. And we would go and we'd drop it in the tank, and it would fall slow but have a decent shimmy. And then we'd add more salt and different plastic and different softness. Because when you're adding salt to a bait, you're adding rocks, right? Like, salt is a rock. You can get big chunks, little chunks, fine powder, whatever, but salt is rocks. You're jamming salt into this bait and you're making it really tough and really hard. And you have to counteract that hardness with softer plastic, which is why sometimes stick baits can be more or less durable. So we feel like we found a formula that kind of meets the middle of the road when it comes to durability. This is a fairly durable stick bait with an awesome shimmy, and that's hard to find. But over those hours with my buddy Brian, we kept dropping them in the tank and looking for that right shake on the fall. Because at the end of the day, with a Sassy stick, if you're familiar, if you've thrown a stick bait, you know what's important about this thing. If you don't, it's the rate of fall, and it's the shimmy that it develops on the fall. And a lot of that comes from the weight and the softness and flexibility of this stick bait and the amount of salt content in it as well. So going back, it's probably been 8-9 years now. My buddy Brian and I, we have a scratch pad of all these recipes, and we're going from one to the next, and too firm and too soft, and not shimmying right, and it's not sinking like we need it to. And we finally came up with what is today's formula of the Sassy that we're super proud of. So if you've thrown this thing, then you've seen the action that this sucker has. I can't demonstrate it right here, holding it, out of the water. But if you've seen us at a trade show or we demonstrate some videos, the Sassy stick is one that just can go toe to toe with what's out there. It's got the right weight. You can cast it far. It's a great wacky rig stick bait. It's going to have an awesome shimmy. It's salted. It's scented. It's going to do everything you want in a stick bait. So a little bit about it. Years ago, spent hours and hours at my dad's house with my buddy Brian, working on this formula, counteracting plastic and salt and softness to get this Sassy stick to shimmy just right. So a little bit behind that. That's not as much of a design change because a stick bait looks like a stick bait, but what's important is what's inside of it, and that's the formula. So this is one of the easiest baits to use. Wacky rig, get it out there, get kids fishing, or someone that hasn't fished much. You'll get bites on a wacky rig Sassy stick.